Boom, we are live. What's up, guys? We got another fun podcast, live Q&A. We got Chris Williamson joining us. So, Chris, how would you describe yourself? How would you describe your channel?
Good question. So I'm a club promoter by trade. I've run nightclubs for 15 years. I've watched about 1 million people go in and out of them. And now I'm a podcaster that still runs the business, but I'm a lot less front of house. I'm interested in human nature and what it means to live a good life and life hacks and productivity and dating dynamics. Really got into trying to understand the way that our modern world's dating economy works over the last year or so. And yeah, man, I've had everybody on my podcast from Jordan Peterson to James Clear, Aubrey Marcus, Robert Greene, Seth Godin, through to adult actress, porn star that won an award at the most recent porn awards. Guy that's trying to win, called Sienna Day. She's you may have stumbled across some of her work on Pornhub, or maybe not. But she's a good girl, and yeah, that's what I love to do, man. Like to have conversations and ask questions.
Those are huge guests. Jordan Peterson, Seth Godin. Seth wrote basically all the books on marketing. I mean, he was the frontier on that.
You know, he's the only guy that's been inducted into the Marketing Hall of Fame and the Advertising Hall of Fame. So he's the only person that's ever been inducted into both of them.
That's crazy. Let me start off actually with this question. How did you get all those big guests on? Because, I mean, your channel is pretty popular where you got 250,000 subs, but those people are like millions and millions. How did you get those big name guests on?
I'm pretty persistent, I think. Just really good at hammering away and asking the question over and over. And I'm pretty good at networking. So one reason that I suggest that young people, especially guys, when they go to university in the UK, become club promoters is it teaches you how to network. Right, teaches you about how to build your social status by being attached to this person, then by being attached to this person, then by being attached to that person. And that's how I've done it with all of the guests. You know, I'll find a 3 degrees of separation away from the person that I want to speak to, and I'll just slowly tick on over time. Good example of this, I think I've got Andrew Huberman coming on the show when he comes out. He comes out to Austin soon, right? He's hot shit at the moment, and I've wanted to get him on for ages. So I reached out to the guy that looks after him, and he suggested me a different dude to bring on, who was unbelievable, called Rich Davini. Brought him on, and then he suggested me to Andrew, and then Anna Lemke, one of Andrew's colleagues, was on, and she suggested it. And just over time, you just start to raise that notoriety a little bit more. So it's a long game that you don't ever actually see win, and then eventually everything happens and you go, wow, now I've got Jordan Peterson or Robert Greene or Ryan Holiday or whoever.
That's fascinating. I mean, it's clearly worked for you because they're not coming on your channel because of clout. You know, again, like 250,000 subs is quite good, but for like someone like Jordan Peterson, it's like he doesn't care.
Small fry.
Yep. Yeah. It's like, so they're not doing it for clout. So that clearly shows that they're doing it because they want to be on your channel, right? Like if you had millions and millions of subs, then you could be like, okay, do they want to be on your channel? Do they want the clout?
Just want reach.
Yeah, exactly. But you definitely know. So that's interesting. So that's somewhat similar to what I've done, but I think you're a lot better at it because you've had on like a lot bigger guests. Okay, so just kind of recap. So you'll find. So let's say you have a guest that you want to get on, right? You'll find out, okay, who are they friends with, and who am I friends with? And you see how much that overlaps, and then maybe you have a friend who's friends with their friend, and then you go through like the degrees of separation, right?
Yeah. Not consciously. I don't actually outright think this. Usually, it's just embedded in the back of my mind. The same way as you don't walk out into open traffic. It's just the way that you go about operating, and that's the way that I go about operating. It seems to work pretty well.
Yeah, I think that it's a good thing to embed. It's interesting. So you say that that's embedded in your mind because I think for a lot of people that's not how their mind works. A lot of people like what they want to get a guest on, they send them an email, they don't reply, they're like, oh fuck, that's it. Like so that's a good operating system. It's an interesting one.
Well, you know someone that's en route to the person that you want to know. Everybody knows someone that's en route toward that person. So it's just a case of going one step at a time. You wouldn't go into the gym and expect to be able to lift a PR that you want to get in 3 years' time right now, but you would take the steps that would get you there. Another thing as well is you need to, especially if you're a smaller creator, whatever it is, podcasting is a good example of this, but it can be for anything. If you're a smaller sized creator, the one thing that you can compete with the big sized creators on is the quality of whatever you make. So just because you don't reach as many people, if the only metric on the internet was how many plays you got, then PewDiePie would be the best on the planet at every. It'd be like him and Mr. Beast would be the best at everything, but they're not. because there's smaller channels that you'll prefer because they actually deliver content that you really love. My dad had this quote, which was, form is temporary, but class is permanent. And it means that if you continue to perform well over time, the outcomes are going to get you to the point where you want to be. Like the top comment on the episode with Jordan is from his daughter saying, this is hands down the best conversation I've ever seen my dad have on a podcast.
Oh, so awesome.
If you can deliver good conversations, then I don't know, people are going to end up coming on.
Yeah, Michaela's like a star on her own, really. I mean, she got started obviously because she's Jordan's daughter, but she does some interesting stuff on her own. I think she's got talent as well. She's all about the carnivore community and stuff like that. I mean, she was like, kind of brought it. That's how I found out about the carnivore world, was through her, honestly. So she's an interesting character in of herself. That's interesting. Okay, so you go through one. Okay, yeah. I mean, I think that's a good lesson that anyone can apply and should apply. For networking. Was there like someone that you knew who worked with Jordan Peterson, or how did you make that happen?
I'm good friends with Mick. So I've known Michaela for quite a while, and we helped each other with our shows. I had someone good on, I'd send them to her. She'd have someone good on, she sent them to me. And then her dad's new book came out, and I was like, hey, can we make this work? And she put a good word in, and we did that. But it happens in all sorts of ways, man. That being said, sometimes I've just tweeted people and it's worked. So I'm really good friends with Michael Malice, who's been on Rogan a bunch of times. He was on that crazy live stream last night with Alex Jones, Joe Rogan, Tim Pool. Had like 100,000 concurrent live viewers on YouTube. It was unbelievable. And I became mates with him because I just cold tweeted him openly. Didn't send him a DM, just cold tweeted him and said, hey man, I want to bring you on my podcast. And that was it. And now we went for dinner on Saturday night together. He's picking me up. We're going out later on this evening. We become really, really tight friends. Daniel Sloss, Netflix special comedian, cold tweeted him, hey man, I see that you've got a show that's happening in Newcastle. Do you want a podcast during the daytime before your show happens? He said yes. Now I'm going to be going to his wedding in a couple of years' time when he finally gets married. He's coming to Austin tomorrow night for his live show. I'm going to go out with him. We're going to go for dinner. So you end up just putting yourself out there. Like that's the main thing. Just whatever it is that you want to do, you want to become friends with someone, you want to grow your social circle, just put yourself out there, because so few people do. Everybody's terrified of rejection. What to tweet? You tweet bullshit all the time. You might as well tweet something that could profit you every so often and see if you make a good connection with someone.
Do you apply that when it comes to dating? Like, are you pretty fearless when you approach chicks as well?
No, there's a different level of pressure, I think, especially for cold approach. It's not as easy. I mean, if it's on the internet, then cold approach is basically nothing, right? But I haven't been able to apply the same fearless rigor from networking across to dating.
Why do you think that is?
I just think that there's a visceral response, right? It's very, very, there's a lot more fear that comes up, at least for most guys, as far as I'm aware, about the prospect of having to go up to a big group of girls and try and crack that open. You know, if you haven't really, really worked at it, or if you're out of practice, that's the sort of thing that kind of can be it's more daunting to me than going up to someone and saying, hey man, I'm new here. Like, what's good? Where are you going tonight or whatever? Sometimes that's a little bit more difficult to get past.
Yeah. I think for me, it's almost reverse, honestly, at this point. But I think that's larger of that is conditioning, because I've been doing a lot more cold approach than I've done networking, right?
Yep.
So for me, it would be more like, yo, dude, go up to that guy and like network and be like, oh shit, like,
yeah.
What's up, dude? Like my voice cracks.
Yeah.
I like your podcast. Like, I don't know. Interesting. But yeah, so I was when I was doing research last night for a channel, I found I was usually what I do when I'm about to have a guest on is I look at their most popular videos, and I noticed an interesting trend in your videos. Like your most popular videos, their top 4 are all about Jordan Peterson. I was like, okay, there's a pattern here. And I saw the interview you guys did, and you said that you're a huge fan of his his work, and he's inspired. I'm a fan of Jordan Peterson as well, so we have that in common. I think you're probably a lot more familiar with him than I am. More like surface level stuff. I know he has like his books. I haven't read those. I guess my question would be, I mean, obviously you're a fan, but how do you think he's like inspired you? Like, what are some specific ways that he's motivated you?
Telling the truth was a big one. So he was the first person that ever told me that telling the truth had real value. And that sounds dumb, right? It's obvious. You're told by your parents, don't lie. You're told by school teachers that you're not supposed to lie. But in terms of really being open, vulnerable, speaking forward what you genuinely mean, having faith in yourself, that was something that no one had ever said to me before. And when I first heard that you need to learn to tell the truth, or at least not lie, that was a real shock to the system. And it highlighted the fact that I hadn't necessarily been doing that for a long time. I'd been curating my personality so that I would be more likable to other people. I wasn't bothered about being myself. I was bothered about being the person that I thought other people would want, or would like, or would feel comfortable with, or would be popular or successful, or get renown or status or clout or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That's the role that I was playing. And learning, no, actually, maybe the best route through this is just to say what you mean, to just say what you think, say what you feel. And that was really powerful. That was very transformative.
Interesting. My theory is that a big part of the reason that Jordan Peterson was able to rise to like kind of the infamy that he was just because of the current like PC like bullshit feel good climate. And I think like so many people are like, oh god, it's like so much shit is fake and like watered down. And then like I don't know if Jordan Peterson would have been able to have like the same kind of rise like 30, 40 years ago. Like I think a lot of it just had to do with like the climate and people were like God. And that's kind of what you're saying kind of lends credence to that, because the idea of like telling the truth is not like a revolutionary concept. It's not like some like crazy out there idea that like it's used to be common sense, but it's not anymore. And I agree with that. Like nowadays, like telling the truth is almost like you're in the minority.
Revolutionary.
Yeah, you're in the minority if that's like your perspective. Because I see a lot of YouTube channels falling prey to that as well. They get like caught up in the hype, and they're like overly marketing and overly salesy, and they're constantly trying to like overhype themselves, and they're like lying about their successes, and they're flexing, and then like you can tell they're flexing, you can tell their shit is like it's not really real. So I do think it's interesting. Has there been anything else that you can pinpoint that you like picked up from Jordan Peterson aside from the truth thing?
Definitely the amount of responsibility that you should bear as a man. So you may have seen recently, did you watch his podcast that he did on roommates?
I have not, but I do want to see that because I think that would be an interesting collab.
It's really good. And they bring up the fact that they kind of start talking about the women don't understand their value. So Kevin Samuels, right? That like kind of he really just wins off this sort of argument, the fact that he tries to bring women's expectations down to earth. That's kind of his shtick, okay? And they bring up the fact that there is a disparity between what women think that they deserve and perhaps, if you take a particular worldview, what they might deserve in terms of, Kevin will say, so like, how tall are you, ma'am? Okay, what do you weigh? What's your dress size? How old are you? How many kids you got? Blah, blah, blah. And Jordan flips it around. And Jordan says, well, maybe it's the man's job to actually become better. Maybe the problem might be with the women, but you can't control what the women think. The difference is for you to bear some fucking responsibility for yourself and to actually try and make yourself into a better human. Maybe if you were more aligned, awakened, comfortable in yourself, more confident, more rich, in better shape, maybe you wouldn't be worried about trying to bring other women down to earth to get them to remember what level they're supposed to be at. Maybe you would be so involved and so fulfilled at playing your own game that you wouldn't be bothered about how everybody else is playing theirs. And this clip from Roommates it's really interesting because it kind of runs contrary to a lot of what we're seeing coming out of kind of like the meninism, whatever, like dating, red pill space a little bit at the moment, which to me, as a total noob, right, from the outside looking in, I just get whatever the YouTube algorithm serves me. What I tend to see is far more discussion around women's unrealistic expectations as opposed to improving men to make them more effective in the dating market. How accurate is that in terms of like what's being pushed as a narrative at the moment?
For the red pill community?
Yeah.
It's pretty accurate. I mean, I would consider it. I didn't coin this term. It was Kevin Ray Wilder. I'll give him credit for this one, but he coined the term "beta justice warrior," which I find funny. And it's this idea of like like a social justice warrior. They're like, oh, equality, blah blah blah. In social situations where it's skewed one way, but beta justice warrior is almost like the other way. Like, God damn it, I'm a beta, and like I want justice for other betas, and like I guess. Tying into the beta behaviors like not being successful, being like whatever, not like, oh, women should just, women want too high. You know, they want a guy who's like, well, they're perfect, but you know, most men aren't perfect, and they should just embrace. It's not being said they should just like me for me, but it's being implied they should like they should be willing to settle and go for something lower, and it's implied. And yeah, I mean, I always found that kind of funny. This idea of like, you know, because you have women who are like, I just find it fascinating because you have like the feminists on one side, you know, saying like oh, you know, women have it so hard, men have it so easy, we're the victims. And then you have on the other end of the spectrum, you have like the hardcore red pill guys saying, no, actually, women have it so easy, men have it so hard. And then like there's actually a lot of overlap on the sides, kind of like between like Nazis and you know, communists. Like when you get to the extremes, they hate each other, but really like
they end up being very similar.
Yeah. So I just find like the irony and all this like hilarious. With like some of the hardcore red pill guys and the feminists, it's like, why don't you guys like actually go on a date? It'd be interesting to see. Actually agree on a lot of shit. You guys can both talk about how much you're victims and whatnot. I think anytime that you consider yourself or your category, whichever person you're in, as a victim, you're doing yourself a big disservice.
It doesn't win anything, man. It doesn't, like, the victim mentality thing's been done to death now, trying to encourage people to take some fucking responsibility for where they're at. And that's not to say that some people don't suffer with genuine traumas that are difficult and challenges that they have to overcome. Like, some people get a shitty hand, right?
Yeah, of course,
you know,
of course.
You get accidentally trip over, and I ruptured my Achilles last August, right? That's a 12-month recovery. 12 months for me to be back around about the same level of athletic performance that I was. Like, that's just... There's not really anything that you can say other than, God, that sucks, man. Like, that's a bit shit. Or your dog dies, or whatever happens. Like, there are some things that suck out there, and people should deserve compassion for that. But there's a difference between giving somebody compassion and an encouraging hand and saying, look, let's get you past this, and then let's get back at it, and let's go and seize the day again. There's a difference between that and somebody identifying with the fact that they had a challenge and then never being able to get past it again. It's a bit tragic when that happens.
I think, yeah, like the difference if you're talking about the problem constantly or you're talking about solutions.
Yep.
I think that's the thing. That's what I see on the Fresh Fit podcast. They're constantly talking about the problem, but they're not talking about the solution really as much. It's just
I've only seen a little bit of those guys. So I'm good buddies with Andrew Tate, and he's been on their show a couple of times. So I watched him go on. A couple of interesting things about that. I mean, I kind of have a rule that if there's any more than 3 people on a podcast, it's probably going to be a shit show. And those guys are single-handedly keeping Shure in business by the number of SM7B mics that they've bought. I've seen them with 15 people in a room at sometimes. And I don't know. I kind of don't really... What's their stick? Are they trying to sort of flex on the fact that they know so many girls? Is that why they have these big groups of girls on? Because they're not really... A lot of the time, the girls really aren't adding anything.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So I think it's a two-faceted approach. One is sort of like a Jerry Springer style, like almost like a reality TV show. You know, like on Jerry Springer back in the day, it would be like you'd want to see some conflict, and then Jerry, put this person in their place. It's like that type of thing. Like they want girls. They almost bring on, if you watch the audience, they bring on like really ratchet girls, right? And then like, you know,
what's ratchet mean? Describe ratchet.
Oh, it's like, we use in the UK. I guess American slang, like kind of like low quality, like kind of like you know, kind of like emotional, angry. I don't know how to describe
it. Skanky club girl type thing.
Yeah, like just exactly like just like not, you know, high class girls basically. Think of the opposite, like low class girls who are like, I don't know, just act like crazy and shit.
So are they doing that? Are they purposefully finding girls that are a little bit more unhinged, a little bit more emotional? Because then it means that if there is a debate, that they're going to be able to run rings around them because their ability to kind of articulate whatever it is that they mean makes them look cooler. Is that one of the reasons?
That's part of it. I mean, again, this is all in my opinion, but I think it goes further than that because a ratchet girl is more likely to say some crazy shit that can go viral. And also she's more likely to give them a reason to kick her off the show. Right.
Oh yeah, I've seen that. I've seen that sometimes they get whatever security or there's some guy there that ushers girls out.
That's Myron. He's actually the host of the show, which is funny that the host is doing that.
Also security, yeah.
Yeah. not like you really need a security against like a 120-pound girl. Like sometimes it's like such overkill. Like the girl will be like, they'll be like, okay, get out. The girl will be like, okay, cool, nice to meet you, and like, okay, I'm gonna escort her out. Like she's like, I'm good, I'm leaving. All right, let's make sure you don't fuck up my shit. Like it's a 120-pound girl. Like you really need like to escort her out. Like what's she gonna do?
That's funny.
And so it's like I see a lot of overkill there. So I think that's the first component. The second component is like um, talking about like red pill concepts. And it's funny to watch like them explain red pill concepts to like party girls, and they're just like sitting there and they're talking about like hypergamy, and the chick is like, "Mm, yeah, and she like has no idea what the fuck they're talking about. It's like talking about technical engineering concepts to like a bunch of middle schoolers, and they're like, okay, I don't know what the fuck anything you said means, but so yeah, I don't know. It's like an odd combination of those two things, but I guess it's worked in some way because they've been able to get a lot of clout. But I would say that clout. There's no correlation between clout and quality.
Why do you think it is that people are attracted to that sort of content? So Kevin Samuels is a good example of this. He's a little bit more targeted, a little bit less kind of gossip show-y, but it seems like some of the rhythms of the way that the content comes out is kind of similar. That it's a what people are there for is for the girls to get dunked on, right? They're there for the girl who doesn't have her values set correctly, that doesn't understand her standards, and what they want is for Kevin Samuels to be this big hammer blow and to come in and hit this girl over their head and make her look a little bit silly. Why do you think that is attractive to people? Is it cathartic for men? Are there, how would you say, not resilient, men that resent women who are out there that want them to be put in their place and they want to see somebody that's articulate do it?
I sometimes I think it can be resentment, but I think most guys it's not as far as resentment. They're just bitter, like, or not bitter is the wrong term. They have they're a little pissed off, right? They've had, maybe they've had a few chicks reject them, and it's like they want to see that justice, right? That's why everyone like those Karen videos are so popular, like Karen gets owned or something like that. Like those videos are super popular because everyone's had that like one person who's like super annoying and like they weren't able to say something, but they almost wanted someone. And it's like that. They've had that like one club chick who like was, I don't know, rejected them or was just like acting like a bitch for no reason, and they want to see that like almost like justice.
Yep.
Like we're all hardwired, I feel like, to want like a sort of justice. So it's like it's a chance to see that.
This is one of the reasons why people love calling out hypocrisy so much. There's something so satisfying about the guy that was sure that he was right, or the girl that was adamant that she knew what she was talking about, for somebody to come in and go, actually, I don't think it's that at all, and get totally dunked on. There's something so inherently satisfying about that. Another reason is that hypocrisy allows us to feel a moral emotion, superiority, whilst having not actually done anything moral to deserve it. So this person fucks up and has poor thinking that ends up being self-defeating, right? This person is wrong in whatever it is that they think. And you get to feel superior to them simply because they were wrong. But you don't have to do anything moral. So it makes you feel, I don't know, kind of proud, and sort of you feel satisfied with yourself because of how poorly this other person's done. So I think that cathartic element to it is definitely a part.
Yeah, I think another big component is there's a lot of feel-good content for women, right? But there's not really a lot of feel-good content for men. There's not a lot of like things that as a man you can watch and be like, yeah.
Well, men don't usually fucking lift each other up that well. Men are good at telling each other that they should lift themselves up. But like, think about what men would watch if they wanted to feel better. It would be Jocko Willink motivational videos or some shit like that.
Some men, but Jocko Willink, I'm a big fan also, but Jocko Willink is more about like telling like if you're in a shitty place and it depends on how you're wired, but if you're just looking for like that quick type of thing, Jocko Willink is not going to get you there because Jocko Willink is like, take responsibility.
Yep.
That's not going to get you there. But if you see a woman who's being put in her place by an articulate guy, that can be like, that can be like, yeah, she's not better than me. She's not better than me. I don't know. I think that resonates to like a large percentage of men who kind of have that in the back of their mind. And I do think there's a problem that there's not that much like, feel good content for men. and there's not that much like, you know, like for like the last 20, 30 years, like always the dumb person in the movie, it's like the husband. It's not, so society, Hollywood has tried to, we've had, it's funny how it works. In the 50s and 60s, or 50s morely, it was like, the woman was kind of like the whatever, like the pun
Second
of
in
the
command.
pun of the jokes, right? It was like,
Yeah.
oh, like the dumb housewife or whatever. And then it's like, whoa, like that's a little fucked up. And then we've gone the other way. So it's like the stooge husband. And then now it's like, wait a second. So every time I don't know, the thing swings in one way, it has to swing in the other way, right? And you see that like all the time.
One of the things that's interesting that we're seeing around that is the rise of anti-heroes. So Joker is a good example of this, that people now can't either be good or bad. The hero isn't simplistically heroic. And now it's been taken to the extreme where movies are made where the villains are the heroes. That's what Suicide Squad is. Suicide Squad is where you've turned everything upside down and you now want to root for the person that's inherently flawed. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see if we ever get back to that stage. I certainly can't see there being a time in the near future where it's just simple guy loves girl, guy makes sacrifices, guy wins girl's heart, guy goes through, the hero's journey. I don't think that's going to resonate very well with the current sort of cultural environment that we're in.
Yeah, no, I think people are a little tired of seeing that. I think that's been a little bit overdone. Although if we get away from doing that for like 10, 15 years and then it'll come back, right? So it always swings in the other direction. I forget what the term is, but yeah. But Jordan's an interesting guy. I mean, he's definitely been able to. I don't know why he gets some of the hate that he gets by some of the mainstream media, because nothing he says is extreme in any way. Like, I don't know. I can't think of anything he says that's like, whoa, man, that's Jordan being like, crazy. Like, it's all like really basic, like common sense things, I think. So I don't know. When he gets labeled like, oh, he's a misogynist, he hates trans people, like I'm just looking at that. I'm like, what the fuck?
It's people that haven't read what he's written or haven't listened to what he said. We can all make jump judgments. I think there was an article that someone wrote where they said they basically already made their opinion about Jordan off the back of what their friends had said about his stuff. And then they ended up watching it and were like, hang on, has anyone here bothered to watch, or is everybody kind of playing this mirror game where one person at the top read it and had an idea, and then it's Chinese whispers all the way down, where nobody ends up exposing themselves to the direct content and everybody makes an opinion based on somebody else's opinion? It's like outsourcing your sense making to the person that came before you. That's where you get these waves. And, middle class white Canadian psychology, middle-aged professor who looks like he comes from a bit of money, it's got all of the boxes ticked for the social justice concerns to be raised. And then, maybe he just fills a gap. Definitely other things, talking to men about men and masculinity and not lambasting them for their own their successes and what they like in life, and trying to get society to see that men have challenges too without it being all like simpy and wimpy. That's an unpopular opinion. It's not a very easy place to hold because it doesn't align with many of the narratives that people want at the moment.
Yeah. Another thing I want to ask you about. So I saw your video on your channel where you're talking about loss of status and how that can be dangerous for men, and that's interesting. I never thought about it that way, but I do agree with you. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So this is Will Storr is a British journalist, and he wrote a book recently called The Status Game. If anybody wants to have a really good read about status, about how it operates, how it's anthropologically, how it existed throughout our history, and then how it's kind of manifesting now, really good read. And he was talking about Elliot Rodger, and who was the MK Ultra guy, the Unabomber. Yeah.
Let's just quickly give a little. Elliot Rodger was a mass shooter, and in Santa Barbara, and MK Ultra was an experiment performed by the CIA in the '60s. They did some really, really questionable shit. I'm surprised the U.S. government was performing that.
Yeah. So
what exactly did they do? Can you expand on that experiment as well?
Yeah. So Ted Kaczynski was at university, and he volunteered to be part of a particular experiment that was being run, and it involved a lot of psychedelics. It was heavy doses of LSD. And as a part of this, there was a lot of humiliation that these guys went through. So he was told that he was worthless, that nobody would ever love him, that he would never get a girlfriend, and over and over, whilst under the influence of a bunch of psychedelics. And on top of that, you have Elliot Rodger, who is a guy who I guess would now probably be identified with the incel movement, despite the fact that he came from what appeared to be a relatively loving family. He wasn't an ugly guy, you know, he didn't seem like he had any deformities or any real challenges, but he really suffered with rejection. And the examples that Will used here was to say, if you continue to chip away at the status that men have, after a while, they don't want to play the game anymore. They think, well, look, I've tried to put myself out there so many times that this is no longer working for me. And you see this very well with regards to Ted Kaczynski, because he just exited reality. He just decided, right, society isn't for me, and he fucks off to the woods. And then what happens is these men can justify resentment that ends up being quite terrifying. So you have Elliot Rodger, who's still a young guy at the time, and he takes a gun, shoots up a school, then shoots himself. And then the equivalent with Ted Kaczynski, he decides that he's going to blow up. He's the Unabomber, right? And the UN in Unabomber standard for university. So he was concerned with, ostensibly, he was concerned with the rise of technology and stuff, but he was also a person that had lost a ton of status. And if you continue to lose status, this is one of the problems that we have with these swaths of disaffected men. I think, is it China or Japan that's got just like millions and millions more men than they do women? China, okay. And none of them can get married. None of them can find a partner. And that's dangerous, because one of the real softening impacts, the softening effects that you have in a society for men is that they now have a wife and they now have a child. You know, they're invested in something that's greater than themselves. They're more empathetic. Other things, there's a statistically significant dip in testosterone when men first get into a relationship, and then when they get married, and then when they have children. Testosterone seems to drop and drop and drop at each of those, which means that they're just going to be less outgoing, less aggressive in that sort of a way. Whereas if you've got this fucking army of disaffected young men who can't get a partner, who don't feel like society wants them, who don't feel like society needs them anymore, you end up with some, you know, dangerous individuals. And this is how you get some of the really negative elements of the black pill culture, you know, or incel forums, where ascending or any kind of hint that you're trying to improve yourself is looked upon as betraying the group. No. You should accept your place in society. You're worthless, and you should stay there along with us, and we can just wallow in our pity together. And it's dangerous, man. Really.
Yeah. I agree with everything you said. The only small thing that, just to quickly comment on that, you mentioned about testosterone. So I would just comment on, is it a correlation though? Because usually as a man, gets a family, like they're growing older. So is it the family that's making you lose testosterone, or was it the fact that you're getting older as that's happening that's making you?
I don't know if it was isolated. I don't know how they separated out the confounding variables for that. But I would guess that they have been able to distinguish the difference between age. And I mean, you see this with your buddies as well, right? Like you see this with your friends when they get in relationships. They become slightly different people. They're a bit more lovey-dovey. Sure. Sometimes they're a bit more caring. They maybe check in on you less, but when they do, they're genuinely concerned. So I think, like, anecdotally, I see this with my friends. I can tell when they're in a relationship because they're maybe a bit more empathetic, and I can tell when they're out of a relationship because they're a bit more of a party boy.
Yeah, no, I agree with all that, and I do think that relationship does soften that. I don't know if it's testosterone, like just the testosterone being
whether it's biological or just psychological. Yeah,
I think one of the misconceptions about testosterone is that it makes you aggressive, and there's an element of truth to it if you overdo it. But one of the things is that, like, a lot of men have found who have lower testosterone when they got into testosterone therapy, that they're actually happier, they're more grounded. Like, for example, with me, I used to have, like, everyone has anxiety. I'm not going to say mine was like particularly bad. I just had, like, some low level anxiety, and I had low testosterone. And then when I got into testosterone, a lot of my anxiety like cleared up.
That's interesting.
Yeah. I just became a lot more calm and grounded, right? Because, it was like the low testosterone that was causing like the hormone cascade, and I was feeling like more anxious. So I just want to quickly comment on that. It's completely unrelated to the point, but yeah, I mean, I do agree with that. Like it's when you get to that point where the man like keeps playing the game, they keep failing at the game, they get frustrated and they come to the conclusion the game is not for them. And I've talked to these black pill guys, and they're convinced that the game is not for them. They're convinced that, and they come to some like, erroneous conclusions that women don't want to be approached. I've had, black pill guy on my channel. He's argued women nowadays don't want to be approached. I'm like, dude, like women want to be approached like by, guys. Not that not that women want to be harassed, but women do want to be approached. Like women like it when a guy comes up and talks to them. They don't like to be harassed, but there's a difference between approaching someone and harassing them, right? Uh, so yeah, I mean, they come to some silly conclusions, or they say that, oh, women only want chats. Okay, what about all the guys who are not attractive, who find a partner or get laid, right? So yeah, I mean, that whole community is kind of but it is sad because it's guys who try to play the game, they lost the game, and then they found a community that kind of cuddles them a little bit, and they're like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm just gonna stop playing the game. And some of them, not all, obviously not all of them are going to become, like school shooters or anything like that. Or it's going to be only a small percentage, but it is usually going to be, it's not going to be a guy who's getting laid a lot. It's not going to be the party boy who's doing up the school shootings. It's going to be a guy who's like, had a bad draw in the game, and he's, pulled back from society, and he's kind of in his own head, and he's come to some like crazy conclusions, that the only course of action is to, mass violence or something like that. Right.
I did a little bit of research to look at the relative ratio between men who prefer to be asked out by women and women that prefer to be asked out by men. So the percentage of women and men who prefer to be asked out on a date: women 93%, men 16%. So 93% of women and 16% of men prefer to be asked out on a date, right? Overwhelming number of women. So there's only 7% left over. And then the reverse is the percentage who prefer to ask someone on a date: women 6% and men 83%. Now, the problem that you have there is that there are more men who prefer to be asked out than there are women who prefer to do the asking. 16% of men want to be asked out on a date, but only 6% of women are prepared to do it. Now, I think that 16% of men, if you were to then add in men who can't ask women out, because that's basically the same. If men refuse to ask women out, that's the same as preferring to be asked out, because they're not going to make the first move. And only 6% of women prefer to ask someone out on a date. Like, that's a losing game. You're not going to, unless you decide to open with girls, unless you decide to make the first move, like, that's it, you're fucked.
Although I think I would be part of the 60. I would prefer a woman to ask me out, but I'll still ask a girl out. Like, I like it when
yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, I like that. So I might be in that small category of guys who like to be asked out, but then like we'll do it anyway.
You've got the crossover.
Yeah. Well, actually, another thing I want to comment on. I mean, we talked about this before the show. I was curious, how did you get verified on Instagram? How did you network your way into that?
Oh, I just pressed the button. There's a thing where you say apply for verification. I put my passport in, put my name in, and then a few days later it happened.
How do you think you got it though?
So I was on TV a couple of times in the UK a long time ago.
Okay.
I did some dating shows. I was on the first season of Love Island. I was on Take Me Out, which is also a dating show.
Okay. I didn't know that.
But to be honest, I don't think, I mean, they'd have to dug pretty deep to have worked that out. Maybe I just got them on the right day. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's possible. Plus, you have a pretty common name. Maybe there's like another Chris Williamson who's like.
There is, but he's a mid-50s MP for Labour, which is the left-leaning organization in the UK, and he's really anti-Semitic, like really anti-Semitic all the time. So whenever my name trends on Twitter, I always think like, oh fuck, like what's my anti-Semitic Jew-hating politician alter ego done this time?
Wait, he's left-leaning and he's anti-Semitic?
Yeah, there's a big problem with that in the UK. Now it's obviously being hushed up. The people aren't being openly anti-Semitic, but the Labour government, which is the equivalent of the Democrats in the UK, they're plagued with accusations of mistreatment around the Jewish community. It's really bad.
That's interesting. For a long time, it used to be like the left used to be kind of in sync with like like the Jewish community. That's funny.
Well, think about the problem that you've got with Israel and Palestine at the moment, man. Like that's not the same anymore.
Yeah, things change. I mean, for sure. Yeah, things change. Anyway, that's interesting. Do you have people impersonating you? Because I heard the 2 criteria for being verified on Instagram is 1, there needs to be articles or some things about you, which sounds like you check. But 2, there needs to be people who are actively trying to impersonate you. Did you have that?
No, not really.
Huh. That's interesting. I might just press the button and see what happens.
Just press the fucking button, man. Just do it. You can do it once, because I did it maybe every month for about 4 months, because you could do it once and then you have 30 days and you can do it again. did it every month for about 4 months, stopped, and then did it randomly about 6 months later, and then it just popped up. So I just
Interesting.
have a crack.
Huh. Okay. Huh. I thought there was going to be like some long process, because some guys they go through like they get like
An
fake like,
agent of some kind.
press releases and shit like that, so they can get verified. They hire a PR agency,
No.
like PR agencies, so they know someone on Instagram they can like push. But yeah, okay, yours was like a lot more straightforward. You just press the
Press the
button.
button. Press the fucking button, man.
That was almost like anticlimactic.
Sorry. I wish I could give you. I can create another story if you want about where I fought a dragon or something. But
All right, so I befriended the CEO of Instagram. I could bang his wife, and then
Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let me see. I had a few more questions that kind of like almost took me aback. How okay, we covered a lot of this stuff. Okay, you mentioned that there's a few things that you want to ask me, so let's crack into that.
Well, just tell me at the moment about the sort of state of the red pill community and the way that the politics are moving at the moment. Because as far as I could see, it appears like there's a lot of guys that have moved into this space. So previously, from my opinion, it would have looked like Rollo Tomasi and those guys, kind of like that older group of dudes, would have really been quite dominant up until maybe about between 2 and 3 years ago. And then you have more people like Aber and Preach, Fresh and Fit, big YouTube channels, Kevin Samuels, people like that. What's the kind of landscape at the moment? Who are the main leaders within the red pill world, and who are the ones that are kind of on the ascendancy, and who are the ones that are on the way out?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I'm going to try to do my best to sum this up. I might get some facts wrong, so bear with me. I think a more appropriate name would be the Rollo pill instead of the red pill, because red pill implies truth, like seeking for truth. And I don't see a lot of that going on in the red pill. I see a lot of it is like kind of repeating stuff. So Rollo definitely remains in a lot of ways at the forefront of, not the forefront, that's the wrong term, like sort of like the behind the scenes puppet master in a way, because a lot of the guys are just repeating stuff he says, like Fresh and Fit. They're just repeating what Rollo says. A lot of the other guys like Donovan Sharp and whatnot. Some ideas they kind of weasel, but it's like 95% they're just repeating what Rollo says. So I almost see Fresh and Fit are like kind of like rising stars. So I see Rollo. It's like this weird marriage, like queer bedfellows, where like they're quite different. Like Fresh and Fit and Rollo is like married. He like sits in his like whatever basement and like rants. Fresh and Fit, they have a bunch of chicks on, and then more like young guys living in Miami. So it's like they're not like similar in ways, but then they have to do these. But Rollo's like, okay, well, these guys will help me sell a lot of books, which obviously is the case. And I guess like what's it called? Fresh and Fit is like, well, we repeat a lot of this guy's ideas and, blah, blah, blah. So they have this like kind of partnership, and they'll like blindly defend each other and whatnot. So Ab and Preach, I don't think they would consider themselves red pill. They're more like, Ab and Preach would be more like traditional red pill, not Rollo pill, where they actually are trying to kind of seek the truth a little bit more. Kevin Samuels, he would probably not identify himself as red pill. Like if you asked him, like Kevin, would you consider yourself red pill? I don't think he would say yes, or he would give a nuanced answer. He would say, well, I want the truth, but I don't consider myself red pill. I don't think he would put himself in that category. I'm trying to think of who are some other like popular channels in that, like who are some other like big ones in that space, kind of.
I'm handing it over to you. I'm not the. Those are the ones. So I mean, just from my perspective, those are the ones that I see. Like pretty much the stuff that I see that comes out of the red pill world is mostly those creators, and then maybe a few other creators reacting to their work, right? But that seems to be, I don't know, like the big.
I think even Jordan Peterson, some people consider him part of the red pill in a way. I don't think he would call himself that at all.
No, I don't think so.
But he has become like a lot of people in the I don't know, manosphere or red pill, they do reference Jordan a lot, and they do say like, oh, Jordan says this, blah blah. So a lot of people do tie him into that community. And again, I think that's an interesting I guess, kind of dynamic because Jordan, he's like been married. He's like sexually very conservative. Like he's been married. He's like, he's not a player by any stretch.
No, be attractive to many women, but choose just one. He's been in love with his wife since they
Yeah,
were
yeah. He's
14
like,
years old or some shit.
yeah. So he's like very much like in that way, almost by some standards, not by my standards, but by some standards, could be considered almost like a simp, right? Because he's like, oh, I'm gonna be with one woman. He can get a lot more women because he's famous now. So it's interesting. Like you see these kind of ideological ties forming, and then you see another thing that I find interesting is that you see the pickup community almost become closer with the black pill community than with the red pill community, even though
Why is that?
I think they're united against their hatred for the red pill community. I think that's honestly
the enemy of my enemy.
Yeah, I think the black pill guys, they really don't like the red pill guys, and some of the pickup guys are like, yo, these red pill guys are full of shit, and it's almost like, okay, we have that in common, and they'll talk about that. It's interesting. I'm going to be going on a debate on Muktaw Dictionary's channel. We were able to like link up again. He's like a black pill channel. I'm more of like pickup oriented, but he's a decent guy. Like we talked on the phone. He seemed like a good guy. I disagree with a lot of things he says, but we're able to find a little common ground. So we're gonna have a debate. I think there should be more of that happening, where people debate each other, debate ideas. But one issue I see with the red pill community is they don't like debates, or not. I shouldn't call it red pill. I should call it the Rollo pill community. Like the class of people who come from Rollo's teachings, they don't like to challenge their ideas. They don't like debates at all. They want to kind of stay within their little bubble, and they kind of circle jerk each other and have like each other on their podcast, but they won't go outside their ideological school of thought.
That's interesting. I find that very interesting. Yeah, I don't know, man. The position that sort of Rollo and those guys hold, it borders to me, from what I've seen, my tiny little bit of experience, it does border to me on being unproductive. I'm hesitant to use the word toxic, because I'm not sure if it is, but there's certainly some elements of it that just seem unproductive to me. And you said it earlier on, is this a solutions-based answer or is this a problems-based answer? And I'm not very interested. I'm interested in why problems occur or why asymmetries occur, let's say within the dating market or whatever. I'm not particularly concerned about talking for ages and ages about the problems. I'm interested in looking at the solutions to do with it, because just gossiping about the problems doesn't really seem like a very interesting or masculine thing to do. But
key word, you said masculine, because actually that's funny, because a lot of chicks, that's what, like, not all girls by any stretch, but it's more like a feminine thing to like talk about the problem. Like me and my girlfriend, right? Like when we have, like, for example, a little bit of like an issue or something, we have a great relationship, but every relationship has its little things. And when we have our thing, she'll be talking about the problem, like, babe, can we stop talking about the problem and start talking about the solution? She's like, no, I want to talk about the problem a little bit more. So like, that's literally like a feminine thing to keep talking about the problem. But then you see it in that like space where they're just talking about the problem. They're not talking about the solution. Like 95% of the conversations around the problem. To me, that's like, fairly feminine, honestly.
Do you not think that there's something interesting about guys that are in their whatever 40s and 50s who haven't dated in decades sometimes, giving dating advice to young guys who are now living in a world which is completely different to the one that they found their partner in? So think about now the fact that most boomers would get eaten a fucking live in the dating market. They look at Tinder or Bumble or Hinge or fucking OnlyFans, and they think that they would be able to step onto the field of play and that they would be some sort of winning soldier in this war. Bro, you would be hit by a fucking sniper that you didn't even know was on the field. You have no idea what it's like to try and date in this kind of a market at the moment. And yet there seems to be a big community of people that want to follow guys who haven't dated and who are armchair philosophizers. Do you know what it's like? It's like your drunken uncle that sits in his armchair with 5 cans watching the best sporting stars on the planet try and play a particular game, screaming at them, telling them what they should be doing. That's kind of how it from the outside looking in. Again, I don't know. I might be wrong.
No, you're 100% right. And it's funny you say that. I think a lot of people are going to think I almost told you to say that, because that's literally the argument I always make. The argument I always say is like, listen, Rollo was out of the dating game since before the internet was even a thing. Like, think about that. Before the internet was like, internet has been around since like 70s and 80s, but it wasn't a thing until the mid to late 90s. He was out of the dating game by then. Like, let's just think about that. How much has it changed since the internet? I'm not even talking about Tinder. The internet itself came on the scene. Like, it's a totally different world now. So yes, that is so true. Like, you are at that point, you're not. It's like, would you trust a doctor from like let's take like a good doctor from the medieval era to give you medicine advice? I'm sure he was a good doctor by those standards. Maybe, maybe not. But like, there's been a lot of changes in medicine since then. We have antiseptics now, and
the problem as well is the fact that all of this, the only stress tests that these ideas are getting are from the armchair.
Right.
Nothing's ever being tested on the field of play, not properly. And the times that they do get tested on the field of play, let's say that you're a fan of whatever creator, this particular author or this particular red pill guy, you go out and you try and do these things. You're already biased because you're exposed to their particular piece of work. So then when you feed it back up to the creator, they have a disproportionate selection bias for the sort of people that are talking to them about the effects that their work has given them. You're never seeing the people who don't listen to you that try your ideas. Well, because they don't listen to you, so they don't know that the fucking ideas exist. But yeah, man, I find that absolutely fascinating. That there are still within the manosphere, meninism space, there are these guys who, from the outside looking in, as someone who's not like under the spell or whatever and doesn't kind of understand the dynamic of what's going on, it surprises me that some of these individuals have managed to get themselves to the position that they're in. I mean, the dude. Who's the real dorky one out of Fresh and Fit?
Fresh.
Right. Okay. I mean, the video that guy did where he tells that story about the basketball dude that comes up to him in Miami, like, I just can't imagine that people, if this guy was in a room, in a pub, sat around a table, I just don't think he would be the one that anyone was listening to. No one would care. No one would care what the guy has to say. His delivery's not fantastic. I don't think that he has very many stories. And it would appear based on that story that he's a liar that's trying to front what he's doing. There seems to be some weird stories around the fact that girls are kind of encouraged to sleep with them if they want to go on the podcast. So there's this sort of weird transactional relationship thing going on. And man, this is from like 4 weeks of being delivered it by the algorithm. And I fucking know this. And I'm 5,000 miles away, right?
Yeah.
I can kind of get an impression of what's going on. So it really does. Part of it's impressive because you go, if you're a guy who's got no game and you've still managed to get yourself to the front of a movement where people look up to you, fair play, man. But then, I spend a little bit of time in somewhere like Austin, right, with people that are genuine high value males. Aubrey Marcus, guy that just sold On It for like hundreds of millions of dollars to Unilever, polyamorous for years, now happily married and looking to start a family. Like, that's a guy who is genuinely terrifyingly alpha. And then you compare them with some of the people that have taken these alpha roles or whatever head of red pill roles on the internet. It doesn't really it doesn't impress me, right? It doesn't make me, I'm happy to admire men fucking all over. Jordan Peterson, Sam Harris, even someone like a Ben Shapiro for the way that he's able to deliver and his speed of thought and his debating ability. I look up to men all the time, but I don't want to be fresh.
Right. Yes. I think what you said is is sad in the sense that it's true. It's all very true. I think, okay, so you have, alpha guys, so you have a standard for what is a successful man.
Correct.
Right? I think you can have that standard if there's one of three things. One, you had a good role model, like a dad or something like that showed you. Two, high value guys in real life. Or three, chicks. Because if I've shown, Rolo, Fresh and Fit to multiple girls. And I don't even like bias it. I don't say like, oh, look at these guys. I say, hey, let me get your opinion on something.
What do you think of it?
What do you think about this? I try not to bias it at all. I just want to see what they say. And chicks are like, are you fucking kidding me? Like this guy, like when I show them Rolo, they're like, this guy is like a troll, right? I'm like, no, he's actually, giving men, advice on how to be better men. They're like, you're kidding me, right? They're like, you're fucking with me. I'm like, I'm not fucking with you. And then they look at the subs. They're like, wait, he has 120,000 subs. Wait, Fresh 500,000. They're like, how's this possible? Like they don't get it. But the problem is a lot of guys, they don't know really high value men. They didn't have a positive male role model, and they don't know girls in real life. They can't. They don't have girls they
They
can
don't
send
get
this
to
stuff
stress
to.
test these ideas up
Yeah.
against in the field of battle. Yeah.
So they don't have one of those three things, and they're like, okay, and they just go with it, and then they start to look up and idolize these people, and that's why you had what I found interesting and also sad is a lot of the chicks who've been on the Fresh and Fit podcast, they get like really mean DMs, like I hope you get raped, I hope you
Are
hope
this
you
from
die.
men or from women?
For men, from supporters of the show. Again, I'm not most of the supporters of the show aren't doing that, but there are some.
Why do you think that is?
Because they feel like their gods, because they start to worship these people, are under attack. So a chick may come on the show and she may be super respectful, but she will disagree with some of their ideas. Well, let's take Monica, right? She was the redheaded girl who came on their podcast. She was respectful, truly very respectful. I had her on my channel. Nice chick. I disagree with some of the things she says. She's a nice girl. She's respectful. She listens. She doesn't interrupt you. Nice human being. Disagree with her about some things. Okay, that's about the extent of it. She showed me the DMs that she got, and it's like, wow. And these guys, they're so threatened by someone disagreeing with their, with their God.
Sensei.
Yeah. It's like it goes back to religion back in the early days. Like we would kill each other because you believe in a different God than I do. We don't really do that as much anymore. But like the Crusades, like they just disagree with our religion. We still all believe in one God. Like the differences aren't like Catholics and Protestants, like 99% the same shit. But we, so I think it goes back to that. Like we're not as religious of a society anymore, but we still have that like idol worship. So instead of worshiping,
bro, there is a fucking God-shaped hole inside of everyone, and people fill it in different ways. Whether it be the favorite sports team that you follow, whether it be your political party's allegiance, whether it's your belief on gun rights or abortion or health or international policy or immigration or dating or men's roles or women's roles or whatever it is. People are so prepared to be tribal now that they will attach their colors to any flagpole that they can find. And yeah, we should be careful about who we hold up as gods, especially the ones who are able to manipulate an algorithm. I mean, as well as I do, that you can make a video that's mostly trash, that kind of doesn't really add any value. But if you do the right things with the video and you make the thumbnail a certain way and you get the title right, you can grow the channel like fuck. And there is a constant battle for every creator out there about how much do I want to stay true to something that I genuinely believe in, and how much do I want to play the game of the algorithm so that I grow my channel and I increase my followership. And we should be concerned about the people who are putting their growth ahead of their message. And everybody does it, right? You choose thumbnails that aren't just white text on a black background for a reason. So there's a degree of game playing which is permissible, but there's also too much game playing to where the point is, well, hang on, are you telling the truth or are you just saying what you want the algorithm to hear? Now, the guy that I think is actually an outlier in this, from what I've seen, is Kevin Samuels. I think that he's genuinely speaking his truth forward.
I agree. I like Kevin.
I think he's legit. And the way that he speaks just happens to be fucking slap bang in the middle of what the algorithm wants, and people love it. People absolutely love that shit. And that's an interesting one. Personally, I have less confidence that Fresh and Fit, as an example, that their content is actually them speaking truth forward. I think that they've kind of started to try and work out a formula around what works. And here's another one, man. Who's the dude that hosts No Jumper?
Oh, Adam 22.
Yes. Like, I think that guy has a pretty good radar for grifters and shills. Yes. I think that he seems like a very astute dude, especially for someone that's kind of in a very gossipy world, in that kind of a community. And I think you can see with the fallout of what happened between the Aberrant Preach Fresh and Fit thing, like Adam has met both of those sets of guys multiple times. He's been a part of whatever, he's been involved in that drama and been able to observe it. I just outsource my kind of character judging to somebody that I really, really trust their opinion. And I think that you kind of can learn everything that you need to know from the way that he responded to that situation as well. It really did seem like he was a bit like, turned off.
I have like actually a little insight on that, but I've been sworn by the person who told me not to share this publicly.
All right,
so
we'll get it when we get off.
I'll tell you when we're off air. Yeah, I have actually a bit of insight on that whole thing that I think is pretty interesting. and I want to say it so bad, but I promise so I won't. I'll keep my word. But yeah, anyway, I'll leave it at that. I don't want to like give people hints of what I think. But yeah, I think you're right. And I do like Adam 22 a lot. And I like Joe Rogan a lot. I think he does a really good job. He hasn't let the fame and the cloud affect him. I think he's done a really good job of that. He still, does what he thinks is right rather than play the game.
Here's a fucking cool story for you, man. So Rogan's studio is near to one of the gyms that I've been training at while I've been out in Austin.
Mhm.
Whenever he's recording, there is a state trooper patrol sat outside of the office.
Oh shit!
State
Really?
trooper sat in his car outside of the entrance to the studio. It's fucking serious, proper serious.
Really?
Every time that he's, when he's in, because if there's a statey outside, they're recording.
Damn. Okay.
Fucking serious shit. That.
Well, because of like the haters or people trying to like just get sneak like fans.
I'm gonna guess just a security concern. Yeah, I mean it's not like he's not made the location of the place public, but then whatever, there's hundreds of people per year that attend that. It's not hard to imagine that someone will tell a friend, who'll tell a friend. I mean, I fucking find out, and I wasn't on the show,
Right.
so yeah, it's but that's kind of funny. You're right as well. Like the those guys that can deal with clout. Here's something that's really, really interesting, right? That I've been thinking about a lot. What does it mean to be someone in their late 40s, 50s, 60s? Let's say that you're a guy who's maybe been a professor or an academic or a pundit of some kind for years and years and years, and you felt like you're really special. You know that you've got a unique insight to bring to the world, and the world just hasn't appreciated your genius yet. But you know it. You've seen it from a front row seat for your entire life. And then at the age of 55 years old, you get plucked out of obscurity by this fucking MMA commentator and given unlimited status, unlimited clout. You have everybody on the planet believing what you say and wanting to know what you think. And this is finally your dream come true. You knew that you were special. You knew the things that you had to say had value. And finally, the world recognizes your brilliance. How the fuck is any man supposed to deal with that amount of status out of the blue when you're 50 fucking 4 with 3 kids and a family and a mortgage and a wife? Like, what are you supposed to do with that?
That's true. That's a good point. I haven't thought of that, but yeah. Like being on Rogan can make, especially because he has on different guests. He has on like some famous people, but he also has on some like very obscure people, like academics and stuff like that.
Look at Lex Friedman, Jocko Willink, 2 people, Michael Malice, guys who were in relative obscurity. Andrew Huberman got launched off Dr. David Sinclair, like tons and tons and tons of people who are real interesting. And then Rogan just fucking finds these diamonds in the rough and then whoosh, explosion.
No, he's good at that. He's definitely very good at like bringing people that no one gives a shit about and making people give a shit.
That's the coolest thing, man. That's the coolest thing about having a platform. The fact that when you first begin to create content or get clout yourself, what you're doing is you're asking people for a favor. Right. So I get whatever Ryan Holiday on my show or something. And really the power dynamic is, Ryan, I know that you have more social status than me. And by me bringing you on my show, maybe you'll sell some books and get a little bit of clout. But really, I'm kind of riding off of your coattails.
Right.
Now, the fucking cool thing, which has only just started to happen maybe within the last year for my show, is that I can be that person for someone who's a smaller thinker or creator or academic or whatever. And I can start to give them the push that they want. And I can find people that I think genuinely have something valuable to add to the world. And I can like fucking put some nitrous boost behind them and really expose them to people and then watch their careers blow up. Now, not game-changing amounts, not like Rogan life-changing amounts of exposure, but there's a few people that I've done the research and I've found some dude who's fucking, I don't know, a psychotherapist in the Midwest who I think is really fucking sick. Brought him on, and then before you know it, he's like launching products on Gumroad and making a ton of money. And then he's getting invited on other podcasts because people have heard him on mine, and mine performed really well. And that makes me feel so satisfied. Like the coolest shit to get someone that's really deserving of status and just give them the platform for their brilliance to go forward. That's fucking sick.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. I think it's interesting how there's also like different levels of it because like to some people when they see like 70,000 subs like or 80,000 subs, like wow man, like you're popular, like they almost like treat me like a low-key celebrity, which is interesting to me because then like to me it's nothing. And then there's people I look at who are like, yeah, wow, like these people, like, they're crushing it. They're like, they almost, I don't think they're better than me, but I do recognize that they have like a lot more clout than me. And then to those people there's other people, so it's like there's like
Layers to
all
this
these
game, man.
levels to the shit,
Yeah,
which I find interesting. But yeah, let's take some questions from the audience. We have a whole bunch. Is there anything else you want to discuss real quick before we take questions?
I'm all good, man.
All right, we had a bunch, and I was reading some as they were coming through. There's also people always in my comments. People, okay, modern woman in the first country, and Alex, you're a white guy. Now I don't think a difference. Not a victim stating. Okay, okay, I'm gonna skip to the questions. Uh, uh, it's hard sometimes when there's just like people going back and forth. Do you do your podcast live?
No, man. I have a lot of respect for you trying to crack this out completely live with all of the technical like challenges and stuff. Is there anyone on the left side of the spectrum that you like/respect? Yeah, good question. Really good question. So I think Joe Rogan would class himself as on the left. The Overton window's moved now to the point where he's probably center or center right. Sam Harris is definitely somebody who's on the left-hand side of the aisle that I like and respect. David Pakman, if you're familiar with him, he came on my show. I'm quite impressed with how he's prepared to talk across the aisle. He does that really, really well. We do kind of clash in terms of our political beliefs, but I think he's good. So there's three. I'm not convinced that Brett Weinstein would be. I think it's difficult to kind of class him as left-leaning at the moment, with how he's gone on to do with ivermectin and vaccines and stuff like that. It feels to me like he's forgotten a little bit of that stuff, but when he comes back to his side of the aisle as well, I guess he'd be in that group too.
Yeah, I like Bill Maher. He's definitely on the left.
Yeah, good point.
I'm a big fan of him. Yeah, I mean, I would consider myself like, I'm not like, I usually don't talk about politics, but I'm not like Republican or conservative or something like that. I'm kind of more, I've always been more libertarian. But I definitely agree with some like left things. Like I'm all about environment and whatnot. So I wouldn't like by any stretch categorize myself as like right leaning. Okay, let's see what else we got. I'm not sure. Do you know who these people are? Sam Satter or Kyle Kalinske?
Yeah, I do. So I'm not convinced that I'd have Sam Cedar on. I've watched.
Is that?
So he is the guy that does the Majority Report, I think it's called, is his show. He's a left-leaning commentator. It's very, very similar to David Pakman in terms of his positioning. Kyle Kalinske, I really respect. He's someone that I should have said to do with left-leaning. Like, I think that Kyle's stuff is really, really good. He doesn't get caught up in the drama. The reason that I would be hesitant about bringing Sam on is sometimes there's like a bit of a snidey topspin to some of the ways that they talk about things. There's a lot of in-jokes and kind of laughing at people. And I'm not really into that. Now, that may be just a performance, or that may be me seeing an unrepresentative sample of clips from his show. But the snidey topspin stuff, it makes me feel quite uncomfortable. But that being said, maybe he's got some interesting things to say. I'm not too sure. Kyle Kalinske, on the other hand, I think is very, very legit. I really like him as a cultural commentator. I watch a lot of his stuff, so I'm surprised that I didn't remember him earlier on.
What's your standard? Let me ask you this question. I'm actually curious about this myself. How do you determine whether you're going to have someone on or not? Like, what's your standard?
Just, is the conversation going to be interesting? That's it. There's no, I don't have some agenda that I'm trying to fill. It needs to be a good conversation. It needs to be about something that I'm going to care about. And then if the audience enjoys it too, then sick. But that's it.
I agree with that. The one thing I would add, and I'm sure you would agree with this as well, is that I need to have some level of respect for the person. So I can't think the person is a total fraud or a total dipshit. Like, I can disagree with them. Like, I've had people on who I completely disagree with, but I can't. There has to be a certain small level of like baseline respect, because otherwise it's just like I can't have like,
what's the point? Yeah,
like, what are we doing? How do you see the gender war going forward?
It depends on what you mean by gender war, because is it to do with what can you identify as and gender expression? Is it to do with whether men are
I think it has more to do with, I think they're asking, I mean, I could be wrong, but they're asking about like men and women, not like man, like I don't know, I guess like feminism versus menism or whatever,
Yeah.
or manosphere.
Um, I'm not too sure. I think that Me Too was probably long overdue in some respects. The fact that you had men in Hollywood that were using their positions of influence to get unnecessary access sexually, and that was something that was pretty bad. That being said, anyone that doesn't think that that hasn't kind of whiplashed from it being calling out men that are using their position inappropriately to it now being men being hated for simply being men. I don't know. But with every culture, there is a counterculture that comes back, right? There is Jordan Peterson's a perfect example of this. The reason that his message resonated so much is because there was a hunger from men for good role models and good examples. And as long as there is that, like if you have a creator that you love that talks about masculinity, just support them and that message is going to grow. And then as that message grows, someone's going to think, fuck, I want to do a channel like that. I want to do a channel like playing fire, or I want to do a channel like whatever the fuck. Like that's how to do it. Support the people that you care about, and other creators will come up and start to do that message too. Like remember when fucking Neil Strauss released the game, or
Mhm.
when RSD was a huge thing, and there
Mhm.
was just everything was a copycat of that for a while because that got clout. So if you care about a particular type of message, or you care about a particular approach in the world, just keep supporting it, and that'll continue to grow. I don't. I do think the gender was probably going to get worse for men before it gets better. I don't think that we've quite reached the peak of the roller coaster to come back down. I do think there's probably a little way to go yet, but hopefully not.
Yeah, I'm honestly not sure. I mean, you would think with the rise of technology that it would get better because more people can talk to each other, but then the social dilemma that that documentary was talking about, how that's actually made us more tribal. So I really don't know. I think it could go in either direction. Yeah, I don't have a good answer to that myself. Uh, this is interesting. He's not part of the manosphere, but he's able to recognize the problem with role giving advice. True, very true. I think pretty much every chick I've ever talked to could also recognize it. It's just like guys who are like stuck in the Rolo pill uh, are, kind of can't really see it. It's like if you're in Scientology, you can't really recognize the problem in Scientology. Like to an outside
No
observer,
perspective.
it's like, yeah, Scientology is clearly like fucking, weird as fuck. But if you're in it, you're like, well, this is normal, right?
Yep. Yep.
I think it's that type of thing. Okay. The matching hypothesis in social psychology claims that people are more likely to form a committed relationship with someone equally attractive. We had this discussion last night. Thoughts? Oh, that's an interesting question.
Committed relationship with someone equally attractive. Well, this is something that's quite interesting. That most men presumably are attracted to whatever their standard is and above, but people tend to usually settle with someone that's a similar sexual market value to them, right? Like you don't tend to have people who are a 3 out of 10 and a 10 out of 10 going out together. So in the back of our minds, there must be some sort of judge that understands our position in terms of attractiveness, and then kind of pitches ourselves as we move toward, okay, so she's probably a little bit below my league, she's probably in my league, she's probably above, like out of my league or whatever. And that obviously takes into account not just looks, but stuff to do with what wealth have I got, what social status have I got, how tall am I, how confident am I, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I think that if you're in a relationship with someone where there's a huge disparity in attraction, there's always going to be a risk that the person that's more attractive is going to get sniped by somebody else. And maybe relationships do sometimes occur with people who are disequally attractive, but they just don't last.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good question. I really don't have a good answer to that either, because you see relationships where the girl is like way hotter than the guy, and some of them last for a while, some of them don't. You see relationships where they both people are exactly the same, and some of those don't last long either. So I don't know. I don't think I would be the best person to comment on that. Honestly, I think that would be like more someone who's done research on this, which I'm definitely not in that category. Uh, Okay, but Alex, you're biased. You've been hating on Fresh and Fit. Two successful colored people, black people, the white guy hating on black people. Okay, let me comment on this. Okay. My criticism of Fresh and Fit has zero to do with the color of their skin. I've had multiple black content creators on my channel who I've endorsed. That has also nothing to do with the fact they're black. It's simply because I like their message. So to me, if that's such a red herring argument. You're making it seem like the reason I'm criticizing them is because of the color of their skin. In reality, has nothing to do with that at all. And you're just being very intellectually disgenuine when you say that, when you're trying to make it seem about race, which clearly not. I will challenge you to find one clip of me ever bringing race into this. It doesn't exist.
But it doesn't matter about the fact that we've chosen Kevin Samuels, Fresh and Fit, Abra and Preach, who are all men of color. Also, I'm pretty sure that colored people, which is what was put in that, I'm pretty sure that that means that you're cancelled now, Marcus, because it's people of color. You bigot. But yeah, the fact that that particular community is dominated by black guys at the moment means that we can only talk about them. No one mentioned, hang on, you're complimenting Abra and Preach, or you're complimenting Kevin Samuels as a successful person of color, but they are prepared to try and pick up on the fact that you criticize someone. You don't get it both ways.
It's the most intellectually disgenuine argument ever, because this is so not a race issue in any sense. So yeah, just very intellectually disgenuine. All right, so let's keep going.
Funny.
Attractive. What's some best guys? Okay. Question, Alex. What are some of the best guys in the space for date game, including of course, is Paul Janka one of the best too? Let me pose you this question. Do you follow the pickup guys at all?
Not really.
Who did you like? You said you kind of were. Who did you follow back in the day? Or is there anyone that you like when you were like trying to, I don't know, like get better with girls? Is there anyone that particularly that you learned from, or was it?
Yeah, so it would have been the RSD guys, I guess.
Okay.
That would have been an influence to it, and then Neil Strauss is the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, same. Who are the best guys in space for day game? I would say Austin Summers, John Anthony, Coach Kyle. I like a lot. There's more. Just those are three off the top of my head. Yeah. Is Paul Janka one of the best too? No, I don't think so anymore, because he's been married with kids for a while, so he's not doing any day game. He hasn't been doing day game for a very long time. Okay, let's move on. Okay. Why would you want to hate women as a man? I do not get it. Yeah, most guys don't get it, but I think it comes down to, it kind of goes into like, think about like the kid in high school. He wants to get into the parties with the cool kids he can, so he starts hating on the cool kids. I think it's like that type of thing. Like if you failed a lot with them, then you might be like, fuck them. Like, because it's easier to hate on other people than to take responsibility and improve yourself. That's kind of my take on it. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree, man. If you've been scorned by someone, it's very easy to just cast that entire group out and call them bad, right? That makes you not have to deal with your insufficiencies as to why that might have occurred. The problem isn't you, the problem is them. And by giving an entire category of people that problem, it means that it's so malignant that you could have never overcome it. All women are the problem. But it's like, all women aren't the problem for all men. You're the common denominator between all of the different women that you're dating. It's not the same woman each time. It's different women and you're the same person. So the problem probably is with you, not with them.
Yeah. I'm trying to question, how's it when people become success, the other people try to tear people down by bringing up an incident that happened 15 years ago? Who are they referring to? Do you know? Which incident did we bring up? Who had 15?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't know who you have to provide more.
YouTube didn't even exist 15 years ago.
You have to provide, Clayton, you have to provide more clarification and let us know who you're referring to. What do you think of Wheat Waffles? We're actually going to be doing a debate soon. He's a nice guy.
Is that the black pill guy?
Yeah. Nice kid. I disagree with a lot of things he says, but that's okay. He's a nice kid, and we're gonna have a debate. Yeah. Let's see what other questions we have. Okay, wait. Okay. Question: what is your level of sexual experience? Have you tried more riskier things? Have you had your girlfriend find you other girls? I guess we'll both answer the question. I'm not sure who it's directed to. You want to go first?
Yeah, sure, man. Level of sexual experience. I don't really know what that means. I've served my time in the trenches. So have I tried more riskier things? Again, I don't know what you mean there. Have you had your girlfriend find you other girls? That's not, for me, that's not a relationship. I understand that some men like the idea of being in a relationship that gives them freedom outside of it. For me, I like emotional connection with the person that I'm dating. I'm more than happy to play the game and play the field when I'm single, but if I'm in a relationship, I tend to not do that.
For me, I guess yeah. I also don't really. Was your level of sexual experience quite high? Have you tried more risky things?
Master, expert.
It depends by what standards, but I guess I've gone to like swinger parties and shit. But I like people. Sometimes even chicks are surprised by this, but I'm not like that sexually. Like I don't know. I guess what's the term?
Crazy.
Yeah, like I've tried like foursomes and shit, but I actually prefer just having sex with one chick and like fairly regular sex. Like I don't like to like I'm not like I don't know like fucking tying her up. I mean I've done all that, but I just find that I prefer like regular sex with maybe some like spanking and whatnot, but like nothing like too crazy. Like I don't think if you watch like if I made a bunch of pornos, you'd be like, oh shit, this guy's fucking nuts. You'd be like, this is pretty like standard sex. Have you had your girlfriend? I have not had my girlfriend find me other girls. We are in an open relationship, but she doesn't. It wouldn't make her feel comfortable, and I don't want to make her feel uncomfortable. So yeah, we don't do that. Okay. Question: Is this generation? Is it so preoccupied trashing rather than settling down, raising a family, being a nobody instead of being a somebody? Is this generation so preoccupied? I don't really understand uh, this question. Do you understand this question?
I think the question is to do with, are guys too concerned with just continuing to play the game rather than settling down and starting a family? And the presumption is that when you start a family, you become a nobody, or you're less likely to be able to become a somebody because you're not out there making a name for
Okay.
yourself, pushing yourself, growing as a man or whatever, increasing your clout and your notoriety and your status. Yeah, definitely. I think that there's an element of this that's true. The fact that the luxury of choice and the ability for you to be able to find new women very, very quickly is a difficult thing for a lot of men to say no to. Tinder's a fucking big pull. This is what we were saying earlier on about the boomers that would get shot by a sniper they didn't even see was on the fucking field. Like if you've not been dating for 20 or 30 years and you look at this situation and go, yeah, man, I'd fucking crush it on Hinge and on Tinder and stuff like that. You go, would you, or did you find a partner in a time when it was a piece of piss to find someone because there was only 50 people that lived in your town and you had to go to a dance club in order to be able to find someone new? That being said, I think that there's a huge counterculture that we're seeing now of guys that want to actually be, good men. Jordan Peterson's a perfect example of this. Like his catchphrase is be attractive to many women, but choose one. And that resonated with a lot of men, right? Like men want to have families. Men want to be able to, like, I can't wait to be a dad. I absolutely can't wait to be a dad. Can't wait to start a family. That's going to be sick. That's an adventure that I'm fucking well.
You and I are fairly different in that sense, but yeah.
Are you not looking forward to having kids, or do you not plan on having kids?
I haven't ruled it out, but I'm definitely like I don't imagine it happening anytime soon. I'm not like I'm definitely.
How old are you?
I'm 31.
Okay, so I'm 33. So
not significant difference. But
yeah.
I know people who are like in their mid 20s who are like like I want to have a family. I think it comes down to like different strokes for different pokes. Like some people want different things. I don't think one is better or worse than the other. They're just different. It's like, is sushi better than steak? It just depends on your taste buds, right? Like you can't say one is better than the other. Kevin, he's a buddy of mine. He has a channel. I'm a big fan of Modern Wisdom. Awesome to see him being interviewed on this channel.
Yes, sir.
Who's Modern Wisdom?
That's my channel. That's the podcast, the name of the podcast.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Okay. I was confused. Okay. I'm a 5'6" with 7.5 to 8'10" face. What advice would you give me about relationships, and what are your views on a limb lengthening surgery to get an extra 9 centimeters of height? I personally would never do limb lengthening surgery because of all the side effects. And all the potential for injuries and permanent damage. I would never, ever risk my health like that. I do know someone who's done it and I know through the grapevine and who's had good results, but I personally would never risk it. Would you ever risk it if you were on the shorter side, Chris?
It's a bit difficult, right? Because I'm not, so I don't know what I would be like. But man, there's a lot of girls that are still shorter than 5'6".
Yeah, 5'6" is not that bad.
No, there's like you can get some bomb girls at 5'6". I don't know, man. I think it's kind of like commenting on a situation that you don't fully understand. I don't know what it's like. I'm 5'10" and a half, 5'11", so I don't really know what it's like to be in that situation. I would definitely give it as good of a crack as you can before resorting to surgery and presuming that that's going to be the thing, that 9 centimeters is the difference between you and whatever the success that you want in the dating market.
But you may find that it's like 2 inches that as you do it, you don't get the kind of results that you were hoping for. There's a really interesting book by it was written in the 60s. It's by a plastic surgeon. It's called fuck. It talks about your self-esteem and shit. Fuck, I hate when I'll probably think of it like 20 minutes later. But anyway, the book talks about, I'm sure I'll think of it. I've talked about it plenty of times on this channel. It talks about how some people, when they get plastic surgery, they go back to the plastic surgeon. They're like, hey, you didn't fix the problem. The guy's like, what are you talking about? Your problems are fixed. But they don't see it because their inner self-image is still of the person who's unattractive. Not saying that height is in your head. No, it's not. Like, height is a real thing. It affects attraction. 5'6", yeah, you're a little bit on the shorter side, but you're not bad. There's guys who are 5'2" and 5'3". So I would focus on maximizing what you can, get in as much of a shape as you can, maximize your fashion, maximize your game. You can wear like height increasing shoes, give you an extra inch or two, like boots and stuff like that. That's fine. That's like a small thing. But in terms of what advice I can give you about relationships, it would be really the same stuff I give to other guys. There's not like different shorter guy game that you have to run. It would still be all the same shit. So my advice would be, even though it's kind of generic, is to focus on maximizing everything that you can, and not really worry as much about the rest. I personally would not do the surgery. I personally would not. But again, it's a personal choice, I guess. Yeah. Does Chris think that victimhood culture among non-PC people is a big issue? Anti-PC people like Fresh and Fit are always claiming they're getting canceled when they get any criticism. It's an interesting question. What do you think about that?
Yeah, some of the worst people on the internet are right-wing snowflakes. So the people that usually call out the libs of TikTok videos and people being super sensitive, but the second that they get any kickback, they cry to the high heavens. That's a really, really good insight. It is a big issue. Yeah. Bottom line is, I don't know how Fresh and Fit are anti-PC. I haven't seen them claim about them getting cancelled or whatever. But if your channel is growing, if you're starting to get some notoriety, criticism is going to come along for the ride. And fucking hell, like, did those guys think with the way that they behave on the internet that they're not going to get criticism? Like, that's what they're there for. They're not an easy to love duo. People don't empathetically love them. Guys might admire them or respect them or think that what they do is cool, but I'm not sure that you would go as far as to say that you would love them. Whereas if you think about Abba and Preach, perhaps, and you've got this guy who's kind of got quite a romantic story from coming from a different country, who's got a wife, who's got a kid, he's grinding, he's doing comedy. That feels to me more like a loving, like an empathetic. I would respect that man in quite a different way. Now, I've got my own biases about the fact that I think family life is something that people should aspire for if they can do, and so on and so forth. But yeah, man, victimhood against non-PC people is a big issue. Right-wing snowflakes should get in the fucking sea.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, like, you got to be able to take criticism, and they're so notoriously horrible at taking criticism that it's like ridiculous. And I think the problem is ego. Honestly, when you develop a really big ego, you just like can't take any criticism because you feel your identity feels threatened. Question, Chris: if you had a chance to ask 3 people to come on your podcast and they can't say no, whom would that be? That's an interesting question.
Sick question. Sam Harris, number 1. He is top of the fucking list. I'd like to bring Rogan on just because we have a lot in common and it would be cool to have a conversation with him. And then the third one would probably be like my great-grandfather, one of my great-grandfathers, because I never met them. I didn't get to meet many of my grandparents. 3 of my grandparents were basically dead before I can remember anything. So I think that you can learn an awful lot from people that have got your genetics. And, people say, oh, who would you invite to? You can choose any person, living or dead, to sit around a table. I think that most people's answers should be just give me all of my great grandparents, because you are going to learn so much more from them than you are from Isaac Newton or fucking Marcus Aurelius or some shit, because you are from them. So yeah, Sam Harris, Rogan, and one of my great grandparents.
Interesting answer. I would agree with Rogan. I would like to have him on as well. I'm trying to think who would be. I'd love to have
Samuels.
Kevin, he would be in the top 10. I don't think he would be in the top 3. I think I would like to have on Leonardo DiCaprio because I've heard when I used to live in LA, I heard he's like a massive player.
Yeah, I've heard some fucking stories about that guy as well.
And I would love to if I could. Let's say the question was, and they have to answer your questions. Like their PR people aren't there.
Yeah.
I would love to like kind of like dig into about
Get
his
the
like,
craziest shit from him.
I think maybe Dan Bilzerian would be the third, although he's done a lot of interviews lately, which kind of, a lot of the questions that I would want to ask have been asked. I'd have to think about that, but I think like one of like the A-list celebrities who's known to be for being a player would be like on the list because I think that would be a fun interview.
Be pretty fun.
Yeah, asking them questions and whatnot. Okay, let's take a few more. Has Chris? Okay, this is an interesting question. Has Chris lost out by not pretending to be a centrist like Dave Rubin? That is really a right winger. He's honest about him being conservative, and I respect that. I don't understand this question.
Yeah, so some people pretend that they play both sides, or that they don't have biases themselves, and that they think that affords them, or it makes them sound more sophisticated intellectually. I'm not sure. I don't really sort of identify myself as one side or the other. I definitely would maybe lean in the current crazy world and how we define left and right. I would probably lean center right. But it's very easy to lean into your audience capture and to pretend that you don't have any biases or any allegiances. And that kind of plays into growing your channel. That can help to grow your channel a little bit. But man, we're not rational creatures. No one's a fucking rational creature. Least of all the people that believe that they're centrists. I don't know whether Dave Rubin does, but yeah, I try to just be really fucking open and honest on the show. If I don't understand something, I'll say it. If I disagree with something, I'll try and say it. If I agree with something or if I have a belief, I'll try and say it. And that kind of makes you pretty impervious. The same with you, man. Like it would have been much easier for you to have done your channel and just sucked dick for Fresh and Fit and suck dick for Abram Preach and suck dick for Kevin Samuels and suck dick for Rolo Tomasi.
It's a lot of dick to suck.
There is a lot of dick. Yeah, that's true. But you could have cycled them. It could have been one each day. But you know what I mean? Like, it would have been easier for you to have decided to just play the game, whatever the fucking red pill game, and do those talking points. But for whatever reason, you decided not to.
Yeah, that's why I find it really funny when people say that I'm doing this for clout. When if you literally go on my videos and you can search my most popular videos, none of them involve other content creators. My most popular people want to see me talk about text game, and yeah, that's basically it. So what I would do if my goal was to just solely gain cloud, I would make one texting video after the other. I would recycle a lot of the same concepts and just phrase them a little differently for the algorithm. And I would play nice with all the other content creators. And eventually I would get a collab with all of them, whether I like them or not. That would be my, growth strategy if all I cared about was growth. I don't. I like growth. I try to get growth, but it's, I care about my integrity more. So yeah, I always found that kind of funny when people make that accusation. Oh, you're just doing this for clout. It got me no clout. It lost me subscribers because I just had every time I make a Fresh and Fit video, 200 people unsubscribe. It's not getting me any clout, believe me.
Funny.
Someone said the book is Psycho Cybernetics. Yeah, that was the book I meant. I think this is an interesting question to kind of end it off on. How much pussy has Cloud gone you to? I've seen Walter Fresh and Fit with cute girls on his personal channel, even though he has no game.
You want to go first? The fresh guy?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I was a club promoter for a long time, and that was the most clout that I've ever had. So the difference is the problem with having clout on the internet, it's really fucking dispersed.
Yeah.
So think about the fact that maybe 20% of your audience is in the UK and 10% of them are in Australia, and then 70% is fucking spread like shit across the United States and Canada. Whereas as a club promoter, you are known within, let's say that there's 100,000 people in Newcastle that are under the age of 30 and 50% of them know who you are. That's a fucking intense amount of clout. So that was, it's like groundwork at scale. That's what it is. It just gets you past the first couple of sets of hurdles because somebody perhaps knows you. But that being said, it can also work as a hindrance. Because if somebody knows you and knows that you're notorious, some girls will say, well, I feel uncomfortable about this. I've heard stories about you. I know your type. Are you club promoter, podcaster, YouTuber, whatever? And for some girls, it's a turnoff. And I think for one-night stands, clout is probably an advantage. For long-term relationships, it can be a disadvantage in the first instance and then an advantage later down the line. I think the sort of girls that you tend to want to be in relationships with for a long amount of time might actually be a little bit more wary of somebody that does have high status because they don't want to feel like they're being used. And when you hopefully do get to the stage where you are in a relationship, that actually can help to sustain it because you're a high value man and you've got status and people care about what you think and stuff. What about you?
For me, I can attribute 2 dates to clout. I can directly attribute those dates to whatever my clout. One of them I slept with, one of them I did not. The reason being, the second one, she was just like, she just didn't have sex on the first date. I could have probably slept with her if I went on a few more dates with her, but we just didn't really have like a good, strong connection. Good girl, but yeah, we just didn't really vibe. So not much, not much.
But you have to think, man. Think about who watches your channel.
It's 90% dudes. That's
not
the
fucking
thing.
girls.
When I'm walking around Miami, it's not hot chicks who are coming up to me and saying, "Hey, I love your tips." It's dudes. Yeah, I have no problem. Great. Like, I love meeting people who like my shit. But it's not. Trust me, it's not hot chicks that are coming up to me when I'm at the wharf with my dog. It's dudes. It's dude
That's
after
funny.
dude after dude after dude. It's not chicks. So yeah, I think that's like the issue with not the issue, but like, most of the people who know me are going to be guys. So it's like, I'm not trying to bang them. So, it hasn't really done much for me. I think Fresh and Fit probably is in the same situation. Most of the people who watch them are dudes. I don't know. I think I would have to crack a much higher level. I would have to get to like 1 million subs and like before the scale works out, before it's like, okay, there's 10% of those people are in Miami. That's like, we've gone to like a decent enough scale. So I don't think I'm anywhere near close enough to the point where I can use my clout like consistently to get laid. Yeah. What about you? Would you agree with that?
I think so, man. Yeah. I mean, a little bit more balanced on my demographics, but they're spread like fuck across the world. If someone wants to get clout, just become a club promoter, dude. Just start working for a nightclub in your local town. That's the easiest way for guys to get clout by miles. You just work as a host or work on the door or work as a promoter or whatever. And yeah, it's game over. It's so easy.
How do you get started with something like that?
Just find a club or a promotion company that's in your city that runs events that you like and say, hey, man, are you hiring? I want to become a promoter, and see where you go from there. There's slightly different ways of doing it in the UK versus the US. It's easier in the UK because the US is a little bit more around bottle service and stuff like that. So you kind of have to go to high-end clubs, and sometimes it's actually more about your contacts with guys than it is with girls because they want guys to spend the big money on the tables. And then, but you also, if you're in a position of authority, let's say you're the guy that works on VIP giving out the bands, or let's say that you're the dude that helps out on the front desk taking money or checking guest list or whatever. That's just force feeding you down the throats of every high status person that comes to that club. Do that for a couple of weeks, a couple of months. Everybody's going to know your name. It's a really, really good way to just catapult your status very quickly within a tight demographic and a tight geographical area.
Chris, awesome podcast, man. Thank you so much for coming on. Where can people find you?
Chris Williamson on YouTube. Just search that, or Modern Wisdom on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And if you want a list of 100 books, I get asked a lot for book recommendations. What should I read if I want to get into personal development? If you go to chriswillx.com/books, there's a free PDF with 100 books that you should read before you die.
I'm going to check that out myself, actually. I'm always looking for good book recommendations.
Man. It took ages, but yeah, chriswillx.com/books. Download it for free.
I'm curious, what would be your top 3 off the top of your head?
Then the Almanac of Naval Ravikant, which is compilation of stuff that Naval said, which was put together by a dude called Eric Jorgensen. It's the sickest book that you're going to find. Essentialism by Greg McKeown, which was a complete game changer for me, and Lying by Sam Harris, which is a 1 hour long read that tells you why you should never lie. It's fucking sick. Essentialism, Almanac of Naval Ravikant, and Lying.
I'm trying to think what mine would be. I think it would be like Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willing, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Total Recall, autobiography. The third one, I don't know. The third one is up in the air. I really like the book The Rise of Superman by Mark Cutler or Stephen Cutler.
Stephen Cutler, yeah. So I had him on my show talking about his newest book. Yeah, The Art of Impossible. So that's a sick book. If you're into flow states and you want to learn about flow states, his newest one, The Art of Impossible, is sick. That's in the list as well.
That's awesome. Yeah, check out Chris's channel. He has some sick interviews. So check that out, guys. Thank you so much for joining. We got other podcasts lined up, so make sure you smash that subscribe button and check out Chris. He's got some good content. Subscribe to his channel. Show your support. Thank you, guys. And until next time.